Success leaves clues. And one of the biggest clues I've discovered in my journey is this: successful people have developed a habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. They don't necessarily enjoy doing these things either, but their desire for success is stronger than their dislike for the necessary tasks. That's how they prove themselves to themselves, by conquering the little things nobody sees. You know what happens when you start proving yourself to yourself, the most remarkable thing. You stop needing approval from others. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop blaming circumstances, because you built this unshakable core of self-respect that nobody can take away from you. That's freedom, my friends. Real freedom. Now, let's talk about what it really means to prove yourself to yourself. First, understand that this isn't a one-time event. It's not like graduating from college where you get a diploma and it's done. No, proving yourself to yourself is a daily practice. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's keeping promises to yourself when no one would know if you broke them. It's choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. I've always said that discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. Think about that for a moment. The small disciplined actions you take today might feel heavy in the moment, like getting up early, reading instead of watching TV, saving instead of spending, preparing instead of procrastinating. But these disciplined actions weigh mere ounces compared to the tons of regret you'll feel later if you don't take them. When you consistently choose discipline over regret, you're proving yourself to yourself. Let me share something with you that changed my life. When I was a young man, I had a mentor who told me, "Jim, work harder on yourself than you do on your job." At first, I didn't quite understand what he meant. I thought working hard at my job was the path to success. But he explained that my income would rarely exceed my personal development. If I wanted to earn more, I needed to become more. If I wanted different results, I needed to become a different person. So I began this journey of personal development. I started reading books, good books, not just any books. I began attending seminars and listening to those who had achieved what I wanted to achieve. I started journaling my thoughts and keeping track of my progress. And do you know what happened? My outer world began to change because my inner world was changing. I was proving myself to myself one day at a time, one book at a time, one new idea at a time. Now, I'm not saying this journey is easy. Anything worthwhile rarely is. There will be days when you don't feel like showing up. There will be times when you fail and disappoint yourself. There will be moments when you question whether all this effort is worth it. But let me tell you something important. It's in these very moments that you have the greatest opportunity to prove yourself to yourself. You see, character isn't made in the grand moments of life. It's forged in the daily decisions when no one is watching. It's developed when you choose to get back up after you've fallen. It's strengthened when you decide to keep your word, especially the words you speak to yourself. I want you to think about the promises you make to yourself. Do you keep them, or do you treat them casually, as if they don't matter? Let me tell you, the way you treat the promises you make to yourself sets the standard for how you'll treat every other promise in your life. If you can't keep a promise to yourself, how can you expect to keep promises to others? How can you expect others to take your word seriously if you don't? This is where the rubber meets the road in proving yourself to yourself. Start small. Make a promise to yourself today. Maybe it's to read for 30 minutes, or to exercise, or to not eat that extra dessert, or to make those 3 important calls you've been avoiding. Then keep that promise. Not for anyone else, but for you. Because when you keep promises to yourself, you build trust with yourself. And that trust becomes the foundation of self-respect. You know, I've noticed something interesting in my years of studying successful people. The way they talk to themselves is different from how unsuccessful people talk to themselves. Successful people have mastered the art of positive self-dialogue. They encourage themselves. They coach themselves. They believe in themselves. They speak to themselves with respect. And this isn't just some feel-good nonsense. It's a practical skill that produces tangible results. Unsuccessful people, on the other hand, are often their own worst critics. They speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone else. They focus on their failures rather than their progress. They remind themselves of all the reasons why they can't succeed rather than looking for reasons why they can. And then they wonder why they lack confidence and motivation. So let me ask you, how do you speak to yourself? When you make a mistake, what's your internal dialogue? Is it, "I'm such a failure, I always mess things up"? Or is it, "That didn't work out as planned, but I learned something valuable for next time"? The difference may seem subtle, but it's profound in its impact. You see, proving yourself to yourself starts with believing in yourself. And believing in yourself starts with speaking to yourself in ways that build you up rather than tear you down. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending your weaknesses don't exist. It means acknowledging where you are while maintaining faith in where you can go. Let me share another insight that has served me well over the years. There's a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when circumstances permit. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. Most people are merely interested in improving themselves. They want to be healthier, wealthier, and wiser, but only if it's convenient. But the people who actually transform their lives are committed. They prove themselves to themselves by showing up regardless of how they feel or what obstacles stand in their way. I remember meeting a woman who had lost over 100 pounds. I asked her what her secret was, expecting some special diet or exercise routine. But her answer was profound in its simplicity. She said, "I finally decided that the person I wanted to become was more important than the momentary pleasure of the foods I was eating." You see, she wasn't just interested in losing weight. She was committed to becoming a different person. And in that commitment, she proved herself to herself one meal at a time, one workout at a time. Now, I want to talk about something that many people misunderstand when it comes to proving yourself to yourself. This isn't about perfection. It's not about setting impossible standards that no human could meet. It's about progress. It's about being better today than you were yesterday. It's about growing and learning and developing your potential day by day. Some of the most discouraged people I've met are those who set perfectionist standards for themselves and then beat themselves up when they inevitably fall short. That's not what proving yourself to yourself is about. It's not about being flawless. It's about being faithful to your commitment to grow. Think about it like tending a garden. A good gardener doesn't expect the seeds to become full-grown plants overnight. They plant, they water, they pull weeds, they provide sunlight, and they trust the process. They know that with consistent care, growth will happen naturally. Your personal development works the same way. You don't have to be perfect today. You just need to create the conditions for growth and then trust the process. One of the most powerful ways to prove yourself to yourself is to develop the habit of stepping outside your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Growth happens when you're willing to feel uncomfortable, to try new things, to risk failure. Every time you do something that scares you, you expand your sense of what's possible. You prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. I've coached thousands of people over the years, and I've noticed that those who grow the most rapidly are those who regularly put themselves in situations where they're not the smartest person in the room. They join masterminds with people more successful than themselves. They read books that challenge their thinking. They pursue goals that seem just beyond their current abilities. They're willing to be beginners again and again. And in doing so, they continuously prove themselves to themselves. There's a story I love about a pottery teacher who divided her class into two groups. The first group was graded solely on the quantity of work they produced, how many pots they could make. The second group was graded solely on quality. They just needed to create one perfect pot. At the end of the class, a curious thing happened. The group focused on quantity had also produced the highest quality pots. Why? Because they were practicing. They were learning from their mistakes. They were iterating and improving with each attempt. The moral of this story applies directly to proving yourself to yourself. Don't wait until conditions are perfect to begin. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start now with whatever you have, wherever you are. Make mistakes. Learn from them. Iterate. Improve. The quality of your life will emerge from the quantity of your efforts. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in discussions about personal development, the power of small wins. We live in a culture that celebrates overnight success and dramatic transformations. But the reality is that most meaningful change happens slowly, through small, consistent actions that compound over time. When you're proving yourself to yourself, learn to celebrate these small wins. Did you read for 10 minutes today when you didn't feel like it? That's a win. Did you choose a healthy meal when you were tempted to eat junk food? That's a win. Did you make one sales call when you were feeling rejected? That's a win. These small victories might not seem significant in isolation, but they're the building blocks of the life you're creating. I've found that keeping a journal of these small wins can be transformative. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you did that moved you closer to your goals. They don't have to be monumental achievements. They can be as simple as choosing patience when you were frustrated or persisting when you wanted to quit. This practice trains your mind to look for evidence of your progress rather than focusing on what you haven't yet accomplished. You know, one of the most important lessons I've learned is that your goals reveal who you are. Not because of what you achieve, but because of what you become in pursuit of those goals. The purpose of a goal isn't just to get something, it's to become someone. When you set a goal that requires you to develop new skills, overcome fears, build discipline, and persevere through difficulties, you're really setting a goal to become a new and better version of yourself. I remember a young entrepreneur who came to me frustrated because his business wasn't growing as quickly as he had hoped. He was working hard, but the results weren't matching his expectations. I asked him, "What are you learning through this process? How are you growing?" At first, he looked confused. He was so focused on the external results that he hadn't considered how the experience was changing him internally. As we talked, he began to recognize that he had developed resilience, problem-solving skills, leadership abilities, and emotional intelligence through the challenges he was facing. His business might have been growing slowly, but he was growing rapidly. And that personal growth would serve him far beyond this particular business venture. This is what it means to prove yourself to yourself. It's not just about hitting external markers of success. It's about who you become in the process. It's about looking in the mirror and seeing someone who doesn't quit when things get tough, who keeps learning and growing, who lives according to their values rather than their moods. Let me share another insight that has been invaluable in my journey of personal development. Your environment matters more than you might think. We are all products of our environment to some degree. The books we read, the people we spend time with, the conversations we engage in, the media we consume, all of these influences shape our thinking, which in turn shapes our actions and ultimately our lives. If you want to prove yourself to yourself, create an environment that supports your growth rather than hinders it. Surround yourself with people who believe in you and challenge you to be your best. Fill your mind with ideas and information that expand your thinking rather than limit it. Organize your physical space in ways that make it easier to engage in the habits that serve you. You know, I've always been fascinated by the story of Roger Bannister, the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Before he did it in 1954, experts believed it was physically impossible. Some thought the human heart would explode from the effort. But once Bannister broke that barrier, do you know what happened? Within just a year, 16 other runners also ran a sub-4-minute mile. The barrier wasn't physical, it was psychological. This illustrates an important truth about proving yourself to yourself. Sometimes the only limits that exist are the ones in your mind. And the way to break through those limits is to question your assumptions about what's possible for you. Challenge the stories you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you can achieve. I've seen people transform their lives dramatically when they simply change their inner narrative. The struggling student who decided he wasn't bad at math but just needed a different approach to learning it. The overweight person who stopped seeing herself as someone who can't lose weight and started seeing herself as someone who makes healthy choices. The shy introvert who reframed his social anxiety as an opportunity to practice courage rather than a permanent limitation. These mental shifts might seem subtle, but they're powerful, because when you change how you see yourself, you change what's possible for yourself. And that's really what proving yourself to yourself is all about, expanding your vision of what's possible and then bringing that vision into reality through consistent, purposeful action. Now, I want to touch on something that's essential to understand if you're serious about personal development. There will be times when you feel like you're not making progress, times when you question whether all this effort is worth it, times when you're tempted to give up on your goals and settle for less than you're capable of. These moments of doubt and frustration aren't signs that you're on the wrong path. They're simply part of the journey. In fact, they're often the precursors to significant breakthroughs. Just as a caterpillar must struggle within its cocoon to develop the strength to emerge as a butterfly, we too must struggle to develop the strength to become who we're meant to be. I've noticed that many people quit just when they're on the verge of a breakthrough. They do the work for weeks or months, but when they don't see immediate results, they assume it isn't working. What they don't realize is that progress often happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Just like a farmer who plants seeds and tends to them faithfully, knowing that there's growth happening underground long before the sprouts break through the soil. So when you hit those moments of doubt, remember this: proving yourself to yourself isn't about immediate gratification. It's about trusting the process and persisting even when you can't yet see the results of your efforts. It's about having faith in your own potential and in the power of consistent action to create change over time. Let me tell you about a principle that has guided my approach to personal development for decades. I call this slight edge. The idea is simple but profound. Success in any area of life is the result of small, positive actions repeated consistently over time. These actions are so simple that anyone can do them, but they're also so simple that anyone can neglect to do them. Reading 10 pages of a good book each day, making one more sales call, saving a small percentage of your income, expressing gratitude for 3 things, walking for 20 minutes. None of these actions will transform your life in a day. But done consistently over time, they create dramatic results through the power of compounding. The challenge is that these positive actions don't provide immediate feedback. You won't get healthier from one salad or one workout. You won't become financially independent from saving money for a month. You won't transform your relationships from being kind for a day. And because the results aren't immediate, it's easy to tell yourself that these small actions don't matter that much. But they do matter. They matter enormously. You see, life has a way of rewarding those who play the long game. Those who understand that the small choices they make each day are actually the big choices that shape their destiny. When you commit to these positive daily practices, you're proving yourself to yourself in the most powerful way. You're saying, I value my future enough to invest in it today, even when the payoff isn't immediate. Now, I want to address something that holds many people back from proving themselves to themselves: fear of failure. We live in a culture that often treats failure as something to be ashamed of, something to hide, something to avoid at all costs. But this perspective keeps people playing small, sticking to what they know they can do rather than stretching toward what they might be able to do. The truth is, failure isn't your enemy. It's one of your most valuable teachers. Every significant success I've achieved in my life came on the heels of multiple failures. I didn't succeed despite those failures. I succeeded because of what I learned from them. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall down dozens, maybe hundreds of times. But they never think, well, I guess walking isn't for me. They get up, adjust their approach, and try again. They understand intuitively what many adults have forgotten. Mastery requires experimentation, and experimentation involves failure. So if you want to prove yourself to yourself, you need to redefine your relationship with failure. See it not as a judgment on your worth or abilities, but as valuable feedback that helps you adjust your approach. Develop the courage to fail forward, to learn from each setback and apply those lessons to your next attempt. I remember working with an aspiring author who had received dozens of rejection letters for his first novel. He was discouraged and ready to give up on his dream of being a writer. I asked him, what have you learned from these rejections? How has your writing improved through this process? This shifted his perspective. He began to see the rejections not as evidence that he wasn't good enough, but as stepping stones on his path to becoming the writer he wanted to be. He rewrote his novel applying what he had learned and eventually found a publisher. But the most valuable outcome wasn't the published book, it was who he became through the process. He proved to himself that he had the resilience and commitment to persevere through difficulty, the humility to learn from criticism, and the courage to keep putting his work out into the world despite the risk of rejection. You know, we often think of confidence as something we either have or don't have. But the truth is that confidence is built through action. It's the natural result of proving yourself to yourself over and over again. When you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you build confidence. When you face a fear and take action despite it, you build confidence. When you learn a new skill that once seemed beyond your capabilities, you build confidence. This confidence isn't the shallow kind that comes from praise or external validation. It's a deep, unshakable trust in your own abilities and character. It's knowing that whatever challenges life throws your way, you have what it takes to face them. Not because you're special or gifted, but because you've proven to yourself that you're the kind of person who shows up, who learns, who persists, who adapts, who grows. Let me share a powerful question that can guide your journey of proving yourself to yourself. What is the person I want to become doing right now? When you're faced with a decision, whether to get up early or hit snooze, whether to have a difficult conversation or avoid it, whether to persist through frustration or quit, ask yourself this question. It cuts through the noise and brings clarity to your choices. If you want to become healthy, what is a healthy person doing right now? If you want to become financially independent, what is a financially responsible person doing right now? If you want to become wise, what is a wise person doing right now? When you consistently make choices aligned with the person you want to become, you prove yourself to yourself in the most powerful way. I want to talk about another aspect of proving yourself to yourself that sometimes gets overlooked. The courage to live according to your own values rather than simply conforming to expectations. We live in a world full of pressure to follow predetermined paths, to measure success by external standards, to live up to other people's ideas of what a good life looks like. But true fulfillment comes from defining success on your own terms and having the courage to pursue it. I remember meeting a successful executive who, by all external measures, had made it. He had the corner office, the impressive salary, the respect of his colleagues. But when we spoke privately, he confessed that he felt empty. The career he had pursued so diligently wasn't aligned with what truly mattered to him. He had proven himself to others, but not to himself. He had climbed to the ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Proving yourself to yourself requires the courage to ask difficult questions. What matters most to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What would make me proud when I look back on my life years from now? These aren't questions anyone else can answer for you. They require deep reflection and honest self-assessment. And once you've clarified your values and what success means to you, proving yourself to yourself means having the courage to act accordingly, even when it goes against the grain. It might mean turning down an opportunity that looks good on paper but doesn't align with your deeper priorities. It might mean pursuing a path that others don't understand or approve of. It might mean measuring your progress by your own yardstick rather than comparing yourself to others. You know, one of the most liberating realizations I've ever had is that I don't have to prove anything to anyone else. I only have to prove myself to myself. When you truly internalize this, it changes everything. You stop living for the approval of others. You stop making decisions based on what will impress people. You start focusing on what truly matters to you, on becoming the person you respect and admire. This doesn't mean you become selfish or inconsiderate of others. Quite the opposite. When you're secure in your own worth and clear about your own values, you're actually more able to contribute meaningfully to others. You give from a place of fullness rather than seeking to fill a void through external validation. I want to emphasize something important as we near the end of our time together. Proving yourself to yourself isn't a destination, it's a lifelong journey. There's no point at which you can say, I've proven myself completely and now I'm done. Life continues to present new challenges, new opportunities for growth, new aspects of yourself to develop and refine. This is what makes life so rich and meaningful. We're always becoming, always growing, always discovering new depths and dimensions of who we are and what we're capable of. So embrace this journey with enthusiasm and curiosity. Look forward to discovering what's possible for you, to surprising yourself with your own courage and resilience and wisdom. Remember that the person you'll be 10 years from now is determined by the books you read, the people you associate with, and the conversations you engage in today. Invest in yourself, develop your mind, strengthen your character, expand your capacities. These are the investments that pay the highest dividends. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final thought. At the end of your life, you won't be remembered primarily for what you accumulated or achieved. You'll be remembered for who you were, for your character, for how you treated people, for the impact you had on the lives you touched. And while others will form their own opinions of who you were, the most important opinion will always be your own. So live in such a way that when you look back on your life, you can do so with satisfaction and pride, knowing that you became the person you were capable of becoming, that you used your gifts and talents well, that you had the courage to follow your own path, that you lived according to your deepest values rather than merely reacting to external pressures and expectations. This, my friends, is what it means to prove yourself to yourself, not to reach some perfect ideal or to accomplish a specific set of achievements, but to live each day with integrity and purpose, to make choices that align with your values, to grow and learn and contribute in the ways that are meaningful to you. The journey of proving yourself to yourself begins with a simple decision, the decision to take responsibility for your own growth and fulfillment, to stop outsourcing your sense of worth to others and start building it from within, to become the author of your own life story rather than a character in someone else's. Make that decision today, and then back it up with consistent action. Read something worthwhile every day. Associate with people who inspire and challenge you. Set meaningful goals that require you to become more than you currently are. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Face your fears and learn from your failures. Live according to your values even when it's difficult. Day by day, choice by choice, action by action, you'll prove yourself to yourself. You'll build a core of unshakable self-respect that no external circumstance can diminish. You'll develop confidence rooted not in arrogance but in demonstrated capability and character. You'll discover depths of potential within yourself that you never knew existed. And perhaps most importantly, you'll experience the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you're becoming the person you're capable of being. Not because anyone else demanded it of you, but because you chose it for yourself. Because you decided that your own growth and character were worth investing in. Because you understood that the quality of your life ultimately depends not on what happens to you, but on who you become in response to what happens. So go forward from here with renewed commitment to your own development. Prove yourself to yourself not through grand gestures or dramatic transformations, but through the small, consistent choices you make each day. Remember that discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. Choose the ounces of discipline today so you won't have to carry the tons of regret tomorrow. And know that as you walk this path, you're not alone. All around the world, there are others like you who have made the same commitment to their own growth and development, who understand that the purpose of life isn't just to arrive at the destination, but to become the kind of person who enjoys and contributes along the journey, who recognize that the greatest satisfaction comes not from proving yourself to others, but from proving yourself to yourself. Thank you for your time and attention today. It's been my privilege to share these ideas with you. Now it's your turn to take these concepts and make them your own, to apply them in your unique circumstances, to test them against your own experience, to use them as stepping stones on your journey of personal development. The future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Start now. Start where you are. Start with what you have. Prove yourself to yourself one day at a time, one choice at a time, one action at a time. The person you'll become through this process is worth every ounce of effort it requires.